Hi everyone, welcome back to another video that we are actually about to make about a completely new topic that actually basically brought about also because it's coming to winter now. I mean, we are in the start of November already, so I think it's quite interesting to actually talk about winter improvement months because of two reasons I would say. One is that it's actually I would say more known topic or quite discussed to actually use winter more to actually double down the work you will do otherwise. And the second thing, I would actually go through how does actually winter affect the hormones and the chemicals in our body, which in turn regulates basically our behaviors as well, based on the studies we were actually able to see, especially from the last few years, which basically tells us quite a lot about how we can actually approach winter and what effects it actually does have. I will say one thing that for about 20 years I didn't think that there are any huge effects on mood or even behaviors between winter and summer. Basically, I did assume that you can do everything you would have done in summer also during winter in terms of your behavior, but there are actually effects that push you one way or the other, like in terms of both seasons, on how or what you are more likely to do. So I think it's actually quite interesting to discuss, and I think especially for what's basically the main points is that do winter improvements, how big is the effect if you actually do double down your work, and how it actually relates to, let's say, improvements in the next summer season that would actually come after us as well. To actually start off, I want to point out that there are actually two effects of winter that we can actually think of that have the largest and the only effects on ourselves. One is that there is the effect of cold, which basically makes us stay more at home. That is actually already like one of the behaviors that we do use or do during winter months, that we are more sheltered at home. And since kind of the temperature is much lower, the second thing that actually does happen is also that the sun or sunlight exposure is actually like very much reduced, both due to basically sun not being for as long in the sky, and very much of the same days. Usually it's much more cloudy or even snowy. And the second thing is that since we, because of the first point, we tend to be more inside, we tend to even more like the sunlight exposure on our skin. Now, we will come back to that because I want to discuss testosterone first and basically the hormones that are in our body, especially for men. But we have to say one thing, that this will apply for both men and women because we both genders have testosterone and estrogen, but it's just basically different ratios between men and women. To just say one thing, I've heard many times that testosterone has huge effects on mood, and that if someone is also depressed during winter months or even during summer, because that happens, that just increasing testosterone will increase the mood and would actually solve all of our issues if we all had actually high testosterone or any other chemical or compound. Like for example, that if we would have high dopamine all the time, that we would be all the time more motivated and perhaps even happy to do things. But I think that what needs to be outlined is why actually testosterone does help with mood, and how it actually does that during summer months more than during winter months, and what effect it actually does have. So to actually point out is that yes, for men it's more likely to happen. Also, one thing is that testosterone is much more important in men and it regulates the mood quite a bit. And I will say that once you actually get to the bottleneck of the winter months themselves, that they both lower your mood and they change your behavior to do less of the things you will do during summer. And during summer, you would be more likely to do things that actually elevate your mood. It's more like of a cascading effect during winter months, which would be best prevented or at least know the context about. So if you actually get into some behaviors that you wouldn't usually do during, let's say, summer months when your mood is higher, you actually know quite well the context about what's actually going on, and you can already just by yourself change your behaviors to basically elevate your mood even during winter months. Now, testosterone is one of the hormones that we have in our body. So it's you can think of the hormones. I would just say example that testosterone and estrogen as well. And what they actually do is that they directly alter the neurotransmitters in our brain. What are neurotransmitters? You've heard about those. Just as an example, there will be dopamine, epinephrine, which is basically adrenaline, cortisol as well, and those then actually directly affect the behaviors that we actually do or are more likely to do during winter months. So that regards because of the effects that summer has on testosterone and on those hormones, which are mostly elevated during some summer months, then what actually does happen is that they positively impact the neurotransmitters. So again, the epinephrine, the cortisol, and dopamine, and they affect them in positive ways, which means that they will act in a way that to actually elevate our mood, and that will happen more during summer months. How does that effect actually happen, and what is the difference between summer and winter? So we talked about one thing was cold, which we talked about that at least distinguished first, and the second thing was the sunlight exposure. Colds, when we are quite a bit cold, and you can even see it instantly, for example, cold showers or cold exposure, for the example, these cold baths, they completely up your cortisol, which is said as a stress chemical, which is true, but cortisol is actually quite amazing, even though it's I think demonized. I again said that probably wrong, demonized, but it's amazing to have it to spike at one point, but it's not really good to have it, let's say, medium on medium level or high all the time, because that basically leads to this chronic stress. And since it mostly acts when we are cold, you can actually see the direct distinction that in winter we would be more likely to be stressed because of the cold, of the colder environment around us. Second thing is also that when it's cold, we are more likely to be at home, so we are more likely to just be sheltered and do less activities. And we know that already for quite a long time that being proactive actually helps quite a lot with your mood. Second thing is that you think you are working on something that's actually quite meaningful as well as work. So that basically is also again a cascading effect that winter basically does have. Second thing is sunlight. Now, sunlight actually directly affects testosterone and other hormones through your skin. If you are outside for quite a long periods of time during summer, you will basically have quite a bit elevated mood. We weren't really designed, and I was in consultant in the design phase as well. We weren't really designed to be sheltered in houses or before you can say in caves for a long time. And this can be just completely seen that sunlight has direct effects through skin on testosterone levels, since it acts basically skin acts as an organ. There's basically a direct way that testosterone is then increased, and also estrogen as well, which then again during summer positively impacts how is actually our mood. Since there is two effects, one is that there is generally less sun, and then in terms of sunlight exposure during winter. One is because the days are mostly shorter. The second thing is that there's usually, at least I tend to notice that there are usually more clouds or snow or rain on in the winter months actually. So that it has even additional effect. There is less sun, and the third thing is that we are generally, because of the cold, more at home, so we have even less exposure to sun. Now, the sunlight effect is actually really huge. There are lots of studies now, and actually I really like those studies that they actually do show that sunlight exposure is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to actually elevate your mood, because that's how we basically evolved. Actually, like the invention of houses or internet at least the internet is actually really new. So basically staying at home and being able to just order things is actually quite new as well. So basically we haven't really had a long time to adapt to something, to a state where we don't really have to go outside. So that is quite a bit, let's say, quite a bit danger on the mood as well. And those basically can cascade to having, on average, or more likely to have worse mood levels, actually. So yes, to answer one of the things, that testosterone is crucial, but it's actually quite a bit important to know why, which we basically discussed, as how it actually affects the neurotransmitters themselves, and how is it actually possible that it's bigger, or that the testosterone is basically higher during summer than in winter months. There's actually a third thing as well, is that in summer, because of these improved mood levels, we generally tend to do more work, which allows us to basically see more meaning in what we are doing and also in life, which has positive effects. Then basically it's like a circle on mood itself, which basically helps us to actually perform even better work than we would actually usually do. So this is probably the prelude to winter improvement months, and that's also why I think that it actually has two huge reasons why actually winter improvement months actually make a lot of biological sense as well, and why actually doubling down on the work that you are doing helps you immensely. I think that when you actually double down on the work, it's actually even more easier during winter. Will now say two reasons. One is that there is generally less activities to do during winter, and you are more likely to stay at home. And now in today's era, you can do quite a lot. Like I just made an example of working on your fitness. You can actually decide to have your gym equipment at home as well, or even if you have like this gym close nearby, you can actually go there for longer as well. And then the second thing is that usually, since we basically discussed that we don't tend to do more during winter, then when you actually do improve yourself during winter months, it actually has double the effect when you actually compare that to basically the general population, which we are a part of, absolutely. And basically this cascading effect of one, being able to do more work because you have most likely less activities that you would have been able to do otherwise during winter, and you're actually able to do more because we would expect that even ourselves, but basically everyone would be actually doing less during winter itself. This is why I do believe that actually doubling down on the work is really beneficial, especially during winter. And there is one more quite a bit important point, is actually work basically brings quite a lot of mood improvements, and the way it does it is that you actually see more meaning in work you are doing and also life, because you're actually doing something that does bring you joy as well and meaning at the end of the day, which the depression's effects happen also because we tend to do much less and we don't see why we should be doing something. Now, I also made quite long segue in a separate article about depression and its kind of effects, or how it actually does tend to show up. But for the sake of our discussion and kind of the average length of our videos, even though it's increasing, because I think it's quite a bit important to give you as much context and information that is actually relevant to the topic. So we will mostly now go into the last topic, which is around how you can actually counteract the negative effects during winter. And second thing is also that how that does actually that cascade into next summer months, and how and also the last thing I want to discuss is why actually the biggest depression effects, or suicide rates even, are actually highest when the sunlight or sun actually comes back during spring. So you can think of it as a way that in winter you can think of it as a pre-season for summer. If you have a really bad pre-season in sports, then it doesn't mean that it's basically the end that you won't do it, but it basically sets quite a good precedent to how you are actually about to do in the season itself. Now, when you actually compare that, when you don't do a lot during winter months, you get into this cascade of not doing almost anything. You feel this general worsening in mood. You feel like maybe perhaps even life has no meaning. Then it will actually have direct effects on the months that will actually come when your mood will start to improve. When, on the other hand, you start to work and work more, or at least doesn't necessarily have to work more, but continue to work and double down what you're doing on improvement as well, then that will again cascade to this effect during the summer months, which will in general lead to even larger improvements in mood, because you basically did quite a lot of work during winter. You had quite a lot of meaning in your life as well that you found because of that. And then when the the improvements in mood happen in general for all of us during summer, then for the people who actually did do quite a lot of work during winter, it's even cascading to higher levels. Now, why this is also the reason why people who become actually depressed during winter months tend to actually have these suicides or have higher suicide rates during spring. We will all have improvements in mood, especially at the start of spring. It's going very slowly, but it happens because of this warmer climate, and second thing is also because of the sunlight exposure. And this actually completely contradicts the thoughts and ideas and state of the brain of the person who has actually been depressed. When you actually think about it, they have these general thoughts that life has no meaning, that they just feel shit. They can't do what they would like to be doing, and they basically went to this cascade of not being able to do much. When actual spring comes back and automatically, or at least in majority, if not all of us, mood starts to improve, that is contradictory to what the person believed when they were and are in depression, which for the brain, which tries to predict everything, is pretty much like a dead stop. Um, it can be overcome, but this is why it's basically like trying to walk through a wall. Like it doesn't seem to be possible. Like the person actually can't comprehend that their mood will basically improve into the summer months. When it actually starts to improve, it's for them basically like something completely opposite to what their brain even would comprehend, and they don't think that it will actually work in the way that it would, and it will. It actually improve their mood. So when they were so much depressed during winter months, they actually don't tend to have that high suicide rates. But when actually the mood starts to improve, then it's basically a push for the brain to be more active, and unfortunately, I would assume that because those are the thoughts that if they are more active, the activity leads to the suicides themselves. So because that's basically what their thoughts were for quite a long time. So this is why I think it's really important, like from all the reasons, even like quite I think serious issues as well, of the reason why winter improvements are actually quite important, especially for men, and also why I think that winter especially should be taken more as a um, way to leverage the time that you have that you would perhaps have used otherwise during summer, perhaps doing more activities outside, and how actually winter does massively help coming into the summer months themselves. And we haven't even discussed the effects on, let's say, the financial status, the fitness that it actually does bring you when you actually do the work. So there's just generally quite a lot of meaning behind actually the let's tactic to that will be done during winter to actually double down on the work. So hopefully actually this has been helpful for you guys, or something to hopefully make even better context for you in terms of how you can actually leverage these findings from the studies and how to actually much more easily improve basically your whole improvement around fitness and anything else. Thank you guys.